It started with screaming, wet, gasping, throat-ripping screaming from beneath the floorboards. No one wanted to believe it at first. The bartender said it was just pipes. Someone else joked about a raccoon. But then the trapdoor swung open by itself, and the blood started seeping up through the cracks. Now, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and the current time in the comments. It's always fun to see who else is up with us this late. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It was 1978 when Bobby Mackey, a country singer with big dreams and no idea what was waiting for him, bought a rundown nightclub just outside Wilder, Kentucky. From the outside, it looked like your standard honky-tonk, weathered wood siding, neon beer signs, dusty bar stools. But underneath it, literally beneath the dance floor, was a room no one talked about. Not at first, not until it started making noise. They say the first real sign came just 2 weeks after Bobby took over. It was a Tuesday afternoon quiet. The place wasn't even open. But a worker named Jimmy, checking fuses in the basement, came back up white as the beer foam and shaking so hard he dropped his tools. He said he heard crying, a woman, then footsteps. But when he turned around, no one was there. Just an open trapdoor that should have been bolted shut. People laughed it off as they do. Because that's what we do, right? Laugh it off. But then people started seeing her, the woman. She appeared near the stage sometimes, or walking the stairs behind the dressing room. Once a performer swore he watched her float down the hallway, gown billowing like it was underwater. The story that kept floating around was this: a pregnant woman, betrayed by someone she trusted, dragged screaming into the basement. Some say her lover cut her open to hide the shame. Others whisper that it was a cult thing. Either way, there's a record of a headless body found nearby in the early 1900s. What remained was her voice, moaning, crying, sometimes screaming. One of the most chilling events came during a Saturday show. Full house music blasting. A woman in a denim skirt was dancing when she just froze. Mouth open, eyes wide. People thought she was on something. But then she collapsed, convulsing. She said she felt someone grab her from inside her. Like something reached through her skin and started pulling. Doctors found nothing. Of course they didn't. The next week, another woman saw blood running down the bathroom mirror. It disappeared when she screamed. And then came the trapdoor. It's in the basement under a heavy grating. Not meant to open unless forced. But security footage, grainy black and white, shows it unlatching by itself. What's underneath isn't just storage. It's the well room. And trust me, we're getting to that. But even before we go there, the air around that door was wrong. Cold in summer, it smelled like iron and roses. The lights would flicker every time someone got near it. Once a dog refused to go down the stairs and just howled. No barking, just howling. They started locking the door. Then barring it, it didn't help. One night, Bobby's wife was closing up. Alone, the sound system powered on. Music started playing, but it wasn't any song the band had covered. It was a lullaby sung by a woman's voice, and it was coming from the basement. She didn't scream, she didn't run. She stood there frozen. And then, from behind her, bang, trapdoor slammed open and she finally ran. The next day, Bobby tried to laugh it off. They said maybe someone left a tape running, but there was no tape deck. That's when people began to whisper. Not just about ghosts, about something darker. A haunting doesn't scratch people. A haunting doesn't follow you home. This one did. Carl Lawson, one of the club's longtime caretakers, would later say that once you hear the crying, it stays with you. You close your eyes and there she is, dragging herself across the floor, fingernails breaking, belly round and bloody, mouth wide. Screaming, they never found the baby. Just the story. And the blood's still there. Still sticky, still not dry. Long before the first song echoed through the speakers. Before the first whiskey hit the bar. Before Bobby Mackey ever strummed a chord, the ground beneath that honky-tonk already belonged to something darker. Back in the 1800s, this wasn't a stage for country tunes. It was a slaughterhouse. A real one, blood channels carved into stone. A well in the floor, where waste was funneled straight into the earth, the river, the roots of everything that grew nearby. Even after the killing stopped, folks swore the stink stuck around. Something off, but it wasn't just the smell. In the 1890s, two men, Alonzo Walling and Scott Jackson, were arrested for a crime so horrifying some newspapers wouldn't print the details. They lured a young woman named Pearl Bryan, pregnant, hopeful. Instead, they dragged her to the fields behind where the bar now stands. Some say it was a failed abortion. Others believe it was a ritual. Because they didn't just kill her, they took her head. And no one has ever found it. Rumor has it they tossed it into the slaughterhouse well, the one still hidden beneath the trapdoor. Both men were hanged for what they did, but they died smiling. Neither gave up the location of Pearl's head. And that smile had lingered. Soon after, people began seeing shadows around the ruins. The earth trembled underfoot, animals got sick, dogs barked at nothing. And then came the screams, not nightly, not even regularly, but on certain nights, when the moon was full or the storm rolled in sideways, people said they heard it, a woman, crying from underground. By the time Bobby Mackey bought the place, most of that history had been buried under concrete and neon signs. Except the well. That part stayed. And here's what should keep you up at night. They never sealed it. They just covered it boards. A great and empty promise. And those break. When Bobby opened his bar, the plan was simple. Play music, pour drinks, pack the place. And at first it worked. The bar had that gritty charm. Sticky floors, good times. But not all energy is the kind you want. People started noticing things. Glasses tipping over, bottles exploding behind the bar. Cold gusts rushing through the room while every door stayed shut. And always that sensation, like something was watching. Especially near the back staircase, especially near the trap door. There was a janitor named Lewis, worked the late shift. Said he once saw a man at the foot of the stairs, didn't move. Just stood there, pale skin, dark coat, hat low over his face. Lewis called out, the man vanished, left behind a puddle of water. There hadn't been a drop of rain that night. A week later, a bartender felt breath on her neck. Slow, wet, like someone close enough to whisper. She turned, no one there, but her neck bore a thin red mark. Like a finger had dragged across her skin, things escalated fast. One Thursday night, the jukebox turned on by itself. No one touched it, it wasn't even plugged in, yet it played. A song no one recognized, Johanna's lullaby, soft, sad, haunting. And wrong, because that song didn't exist in the system. It played through, then again, until someone smashed the jukebox with a chair just to make it stop. It did, but the silence didn't last. The next day, Bobby told reporters it was nonsense. Said people like to tell stories. Said there were no ghosts, no demons, no cursed wells. But he stopped going into the basement. Gave that job to Carl, poor Carl. But for now, imagine this. You own a bar. A lively, rowdy bar where the music's loud and the beer's cold. But every time you pass the basement door, it creaks. The bulb above it flickers. The lock refuses to hold. No matter how tightly you bolt it, no matter how hard you pray, they say a honky-tonk is just a honky-tonk, unless it's built over something else, something older, something that doesn't sleep, that sings beneath your feet, that waits behind trapdoors and watches you dance. They say her name was Johanna. At least, that's the name that stuck. The one whispered by workers and regulars, and anyone unlucky enough to be alone after closing time. She wasn't just another ghost. She wasn't even the first. But she was the one who stayed the loudest. The story, as it's been passed down, goes like this. Back in the 1940s, when the building was something between a nightclub and a gambling den, a young woman named Johanna worked as a dancer. A stunning girl, red dress, eyes like a dare, the kind of beauty that made men forget their wives and bartenders forget their tabs. She fell in love with a singer. Of course she did, and he loved her back. But love doesn't always win, especially not in places like this. The owner of the club at that time, her father, or possibly something worse, discovered the affair, and he was not amused. Some say he had the singer killed. Others say he simply disappeared. Either way, the boy was gone, and Johanna was left behind with a shattered heart and something even heavier. She was pregnant. Grief does funny things to a person. Grief, mixed with rage, mixed with betrayal. Johanna poisoned herself in one of the dressing rooms. Left a note. It said only this: "My love is gone. I'm joining him." And after that, she was never really gone. Years passed. Decades even. But her presence stayed like perfume in the curtains. People started reporting a woman's voice humming behind the stage. Female patrons said they saw a figure in the mirror while doing their makeup, always right behind them, always too close. And the song, that soft, drifting melody that came from nowhere. It didn't match any of the club's set lists, didn't play through any speaker, just existed in the air like a memory you didn't know you had. Carl, the caretaker, said she spoke to him once, late at night. He'd been sweeping up spilled popcorn and cigarette butts near the stage when he heard her. She said he didn't deserve it. Carl froze. Then she added, "I loved him." When he turned around, there was no one there, just a faint floral smell, roses maybe and something else, like mold. A visitor once snapped a photo backstage. When they looked at the picture later, there was a faint outline near the curtain. A face not scary exactly, but sad, so sad. One performer, a young woman doing her first live show, broke down sobbing in the green room. She said it wasn't nerves, said she felt someone else crying inside her chest, like the sadness didn't belong to her, but was using her like a speaker. She never performed again. Another night, the club was packed, dance floor heaving, the band in full swing. But the music glitched. Microphones cut out, guitars buzzed. And for about 15 seconds, no one could hear anything but that lullaby again, sliding through the speakers like a ghost finger on a vinyl groove. Everyone stopped, no one spoke. Then the lights dimmed, and a woman was seen walking slowly across the stage, not dancing, not waving, just walking. Head down, dress flowing. She vanished before she reached the end. No one ever found the source of the song. They replaced all the wiring, ripped out the speakers, even got new amps. Didn't matter. It always came back. Always her voice, always the same notes. Carl said Johanna wasn't angry. Not like the others. She was mournful. She didn't want revenge. She just wanted to be remembered, to sing. But sometimes grief grows teeth, and the line between sorrow and rage gets real blurry when you've been dead that long. One night, a man, drunk and loud, mocked the whole ghost story thing, stood in the middle of the bar and yelled, "Hey, Johanna! And come sing me a lullaby." People laughed, until his drink shattered in his hand. No one was near him. The glass just exploded, blood everywhere. He never came back, said he heard her crying in his dreams for weeks, said she followed him home. So now they warn you, quietly, but they warn you, don't disrespect her. Don't whistle that tune, don't bring red roses into the club. And if you're backstage alone and you feel like someone's watching, just let her. She's not done singing yet. Carl Lawson didn't believe in ghosts. Not really. He was a maintenance guy. The kind who fixed things quietly, kept to himself, and knew every creaking board in the floor. But Bobby Mackey's didn't care what you believed. Carl's descent didn't happen all at once. It was slow, slippery, like something peeling layers off his sanity bit by bit. It started with whispers, simple stuff. Just murmurs, like someone standing in the next room talking through a mouth full of water. He thought it was the pipes. Or maybe the band left an amp on. But the voices didn't stop. And they got bolder. Carl, that's what he heard next. Just his name, nothing else. He stopped sleeping, started drinking more, which in a bar is easy. One night, he was down in the basement replacing a busted water heater. The trapdoor was open, not all the way, just a crack. Enough for something to see out. He felt it, that crawling sensation on his skin, like being watched by 100 dead eyes. And then he wasn't alone. He said the air changed, got heavy. His ears popped like he was diving deep underwater. And then came the voice, not in his ears, in his head. "Let me in." He dropped his wrench, ran upstairs. Didn't speak for hours. After that, things got strange. He'd lose time, black out during work. One time, Bobby found him just standing by the jukebox, blank-eyed, mumbling something no one could understand. And the drawings. He started sketching things. Circles, not symbols. Pits with people falling in. One of the bartenders found a napkin on her break. Carl had drawn the well, but with arms reaching out of it. Too many arms. He said it was just doodles, but his hands wouldn't stop shaking. Eventually, he went to a priest. Now keep in mind, this wasn't some dramatic movie moment. This was Carl, sweaty and exhausted, sitting across from a man in a collar, trying to explain that something had crawled inside his thoughts. The priest, Father Matthias, was skeptical at first, until Carl started speaking in Latin. Carl didn't know Latin, never studied it, could barely spell half the words he said. But there it was, recorded on tape. Words that translated to things like "open the gate" and "her blood is the key." After that, Father Matthias agreed to help. They met again a week later. Private room, lit candles. Carl pacing like a caged thing. The priest opened his Bible, began the rite, and Carl laughed. Not normal laughter, sharp, high-pitched. Like a puppet trying to fake joy. He slapped the Bible out of the priest's hands, screamed, threw a chair across the room with strength he shouldn't have had. Then he dropped to his knees and begged, "Please get it out, please, Father. It's in my chest." They never finished the exorcism. Said he wasn't strong enough. It was something else, something ancient, something that belonged to the well. Carl's possession wasn't like in the movies. His head didn't spin, he didn't crawl on ceilings. But he changed, his voice lowered. His eyes stopped blinking normally, just stared too long. And he started going down into the basement alone, even when no one asked. They found him once kneeling beside the well, fingers brushing the old stones like they were sacred. He said he could hear them. Not just Johanna, not just Pearl, all of them. He said the well was a mouth, and he was learning to feed it. After that, Bobby banned him from going down alone. Locked the basement tight, didn't matter, because Carl had a key. And when he disappeared one night for 3 hours, they finally found him behind the stage, his clothes soaking wet, lips blue, eyes rolling like marbles in his skull. He whispered, "She's coming back." They took him to a hospital. He didn't remember any of it, but he drew the well again. This time it was open, and something with horns was climbing out. The well room wasn't supposed to exist. At least, that's what the renovation blueprints said. But buildings lie, or maybe people lie about buildings. Either way, there it was, buried beneath Bobby Mackey's music world, like a secret trying too hard to stay forgotten. The first time someone pried open the trapdoor and stepped inside, they found a room that felt older than the rest of the building, older than the dirt around it. The walls were rough stone, sweating with damp. The air was thick, cold, and dead, and in the center, a hole, about 4 feet wide, lined with crumbling brick. The well, the so-called gateway to hell. Of course, that sounds dramatic, even silly, but stand above that hole for more than 5 seconds and see if your skin doesn't crawl. People described feeling pulled toward it, not physically, not at first. More like something in their brain telling them to lean in, to listen, to fall. And there's a legend, one that goes back to the old slaughterhouse days, that the well was never meant for water. It was meant for blood. Animal blood at first, then not just animals. The theory goes that the same men who murdered Pearl Bryan used the well to dispose of her head. That's why it was never found. That's why she's never truly rested. Carl Lawson believed it. He told people the well was alive, said he'd seen it breathe. Sometimes, he claimed, when you got close enough you could hear whispering. Not from the bottom, from the bricks. They pulsed like veins. He said there were eyes down there. He never said how many. Flashlights would fail as soon as they crossed the threshold of the room. EMF detectors, a favorite of ghost hunters, spiked off the charts. One paranormal team brought a motion-activated camera. They left it overnight. When they returned, the footage showed exactly what they feared. An object floating up from the well, not crawling. Floating, a shape. Humanoid but wrong. Long arms, no visible face. Just rising, pausing in the middle of the room, then vanishing out of frame. There were no strings, no fans, no explanation. But the most disturbing part came 2 seconds after the thing disappeared. The camera flipped over by itself, face down. It stayed that way until morning. And here's where things get uglier. That team didn't just pack up and leave. They got sick. One woman, the lead investigator, suffered 3 unexplained seizures within the month. Another claimed something followed him home. His dog barked at corners for hours. His girlfriend started sleepwalking. They moved across the state, didn't help. Whatever climbed out of that well didn't need to stay behind. Another story came from a contractor doing electrical work. Big guy, tough. Had worked prisons and morgues before, didn't scare easy. He went into the well room alone. 10 minutes later, they heard him screaming. They found him curled in the corner, arms around his head, eyes shut tight. He kept muttering, "It's too loud, too loud." But the room had been silent. No sound, no music, just whatever was in his head. After that, Bobby had the room sealed, padlock, deadbolt warning signs. Still didn't help. One night during a show, the floor above the well cracked. Just a hairline fracture, but right over the spot. And the temperature dropped 30 degrees in under a minute. Drinks froze on the table. Literally. Then the smell hit. Like sulfur and burning hair. Like rot, people ran out. 2 passed out in the parking lot. One woman threw up black sludge. Doctors said it was bad shrimp. She hadn't eaten seafood in days. Eventually, they brought in another priest. A younger one, confident. Brave. He stayed down there for all of 5 minutes. Came back up and said, "It's not a ghost." When asked what it was, he just said, "It's waiting," and refused to ever return. After that, they tried to cover the trapdoor with cement. But the cement cracked twice. Now it's covered with a heavy steel plate. Still it hums sometimes, just beneath the music, right under the stage. And if you listen closely, you can still hear the breathing, slow, shallow waiting. The music at Bobby Mackey's never really stops. Even when the band's gone, even when the place is locked up, chairs on tables, lights off, and silence thick as syrup, something always finds a way to play. It usually starts with the jukebox. Old thing, classic. Looks like it belongs in a roadside diner. It's been unplugged more times than anyone can count. Power cord yanked out, speakers removed. Doesn't matter. It still plays. Carl was the first to notice it. Way back when he still had some fight left in him. He'd lock up for the night, make his rounds, and just as he reached the front door, click, a song would begin. Not just any song. Something low, sad. The kind of tune that sounds like it's trying not to wake the dead. Sometimes it was an actual track. Patsy Cline, Hank Williams. Something vintage. Other times it was nothing anyone could identify. Wordless humming, instrumentals that didn't match any record inside. One night it was a child singing. A lullaby with no clear melody. Just soft, shaky notes. He recorded it once, played it back later and found only static. When he turned off the recorder, the song began again, right behind him. Eventually, Carl stopped checking, just locked up and walked faster. But he wasn't the only one. Musicians, especially new ones, would mention hearing phantom chords while tuning. Chords that didn't match their instruments. One woman said she strummed an E minor, but what came out sounded like a choir gasping. Another swore her guitar strings moved without her touching them. Plucked one at a time. Like fingers tracing sound, people started hearing piano notes. Just a few at a time. Always the same pattern. 3 keys. Pause 3 more. No piano had ever been installed in the club. Not officially, but it played anyway. And then there's the story of Rick. Bartender, part-time bassist, full-time skeptic. He was alone one night, cleaning up, music long gone, until the jukebox lit up. Green light pulsing like a heartbeat. He froze, the screen blinked. Track 13 lit up. He hadn't touched it, no one had. And the track labeled 13 wasn't even in the system. The speakers crackled. A woman's voice came through. Not singing, laughing. Low and breathy, like someone telling a secret joke. Rick yanked the cord out. The light stayed on. He took a crowbar and smashed it. Wood splinters, glass everywhere. And then the room went silent. A high-pitched scream that blew out every bulb in the room. Rick quit the next day. Said his ears hadn't stopped ringing. But the jukebox kept playing, even in pieces. That's when Bobby tried replacing it. Brought in a brand new digital one. Guess what? It played the same songs. Even ones not loaded into the new system. Even the lullaby. That's when people started leaving offerings. Not big things. Roses, coins. Handwritten notes tucked beneath the speaker. And for a while the jukebox stayed quiet. Until one night, someone took one of the offerings. A $1 bill folded into a heart. They joked about it, said they were breaking the curse. That person never came back. Rumor is they started sleepwalking. Woke up on their roof 3 nights in a row. Said they kept hearing music playing underwater. Gurgling, slow dancing music that wouldn't stop until they opened a door that didn't exist. That's the pattern at Bobby Mackey's. Mock it and it follows you. Disrespect it and it shows you things. But the music, that's just the start. Because eventually something always wants to dance. And once that jukebox picks a partner, it doesn't let go. People talk about being pulled toward it, feeling their feet move without wanting to, like gravity shifted. One woman said she danced for 3 hours straight without stopping. Didn't blink, didn't sweat. Her boyfriend recorded her. When they watched the video back, there was a figure standing behind her the entire time. Not moving, just watching. The lights flickered with every step she took. And at the very end, when she collapsed, the jukebox played one final note. Just one, and every glass behind the bar cracked at once. They tried to throw it out after that. Drove it out to the dump, left it. The next morning it was back, right where it always sat, plugged in, smiling, waiting to play. The attic door had been nailed shut since the 70s. No one wanted to talk about why. Not really. The story kept changing depending on who you asked. Some said it was because of a raccoon infestation. Others claimed someone once hanged themselves up there, but the real reason, too many people went in and didn't come back the same. See, Bobby Mackey's attic isn't like a normal attic. It's narrow, claustrophobic, the kind of place where sound echoes wrong. You speak once and hear it twice. Carl hated that door. Even when it was nailed closed, he said he could hear it rattle at night. Just lightly, like something knocking from the other side with one crooked finger. No wind, no reason, just that soft tap, tap, tap. One day, a new guy named Jordan, young, tough, fresh out of trade school, decided to prove a point. He wasn't scared, didn't believe in ghosts, and he'd heard the attic was where the real stuff happened. So he pried the nails loose, every last one. Even when the air started to get colder, even when his flashlight flickered, he opened the door. Everyone in the bar heard the creak, even over the music. They said it was like a scream pretending to be a hinge. Jordan walked up the stairs, disappeared into the dark. He came back down 13 minutes later. Face pale, eyes wrong. Didn't say a word. Not that night, not ever again. He quit the next day, moved out of state, but left a message scratched into the bathroom mirror before he left. Just one word, don't. After that, they nailed the attic door shut again, used thicker nails. One of them bent mid-hammer, no reason, just snapped sideways. So they used screws, then bolts, and still it opened again. One night, the door was found wide open at closing time. No one had touched it. The security camera caught only static from 2:11 to 2:23 a.m. 12 whole minutes of fuzz. When the feed returned, the attic door was open, and the lights in the hallway flickered like Morse code. Nobody wanted to decode it. One bartender, Rachel, heard movement up there while locking up. She froze, keys halfway to the door, and listened. Slow steps, not footsteps exactly, something softer, dragging, like bare feet, but heavy. She bolted, left her car keys on the bar, and didn't return for 3 days. When she did, her hands were covered in scratches. She said she dreamed of the attic door, saw herself opening it, walking up backwards, smiling the whole time. The dreams didn't stop until she cut off all her hair. She claimed something in the attic liked long hair, and she wasn't taking any chances. Another regular claimed he once saw a face watching from the attic window. Late at night, it blinked, then disappeared. But the window was nailed shut from the inside, and the dust hadn't been disturbed. Still, the image stayed burned into his brain. He started drawing it obsessively. Napkins, men's bathroom stalls. A pale oval with hollow eyes, no mouth. Just the kind of face you imagine watching you while you sleep. One paranormal team begged for access. Said they needed to go up there. Said the attic was the key to understanding the whole haunting. They lasted 6 minutes. Came down drenched in sweat, eyes darting like prey. Wouldn't say what happened, just left. Didn't even pack up their gear. It sat in the hallway for days, untouched. And the attic door still open sometimes. Not all the way, just a crack. Just enough to see the darkness inside. And once, only once, someone saw something moving up there. Not fast, not slow, just swaying like something hanging from the rafters or dancing, depending on your angle. But no one goes up anymore, they've accepted it. The attic has a mind of its own, and some doors open whether you want them to or not. Every one of them ghost hunters, curious YouTubers, clergy. Didn't matter what equipment they brought or what prayers they mumbled under their breath. No one made it through the night at Bobby Mackey's without something trying to break them. The first group was cocky, early 2000s. Came with matching jackets and GoPros duct taped to helmets. They joked, filmed intro clips, said they were going to choke the ghost out. They barely made it to midnight. Their footage, what survived of it, shows them in the well room. At first, nothing unusual, just EMF meters blinking. The usual ghost hunting show banter, then the growling started. None of them had pets, none of them were growling, but it was there. Deep, not coming from the well, but from the walls. A slow grinding sound, and the shadows moved. Not like flickers, more like people, stepping between frames. Then one of them screamed. Loud, dropped the camera. It landed sideways and you can see boots, running doors slamming. The last frame is a pair of hands, one pressed flat against the basement wall, the other clawing at his chest like he couldn't breathe. They never came back for their gear. The next group was more serious. They brought instruments, wires, an actual priest, tried to cleanse the energy. They read scripture over the trapdoor. The priest's Bible burst into flames, spontaneously. He ran out screaming in Latin, the rest scattered. One of them stayed behind long enough to say, "There's something down there that doesn't care about God." Then he fainted, flat out on the floor. His shoes were smoking. Another woman, a solo investigator, filmed herself in the green room. She set up a static cam, left it running, then walked to the back hallway. The footage plays fine for 5 minutes, then the air shifts. The camera begins to shake, slightly, like someone breathing on it. And the door to the dressing room opens by itself, just an inch. She returns a few minutes later. She doesn't notice the door is open. But behind her in the mirror, a figure, pale still, wearing a red dress. "Johanna," the investigator screamed, loud enough to pop the mic. She stumbled backward and cut her hand on the dressing table. Still has the scar. She later said she didn't remember seeing anyone. But she did remember the perfume, roses and decay. Always roses and decay. Even skeptics didn't last. A podcaster came in trying to disprove it all. Said it was mass hysteria, fake stories and bad plumbing. He laughed into the mic. Said he was going to sleep in the well room. Tied himself to a chair down there. Just him, the mic, and a candle. He recorded for 3 hours. The next morning, the chair was still there, but he wasn't. They found him out by the river barefoot, sobbing. Couldn't remember how he got there. He never posted the episode. Said his laptop caught fire when he tried to edit. Another man, a medium, tried to channel whatever was in the attic. He went into a trance, sat completely still for 37 minutes. Then he spoke in a voice that wasn't his. Not just the pitch, the rhythm was off. Too slow, like a phonograph set to the wrong speed. He said, "There is no door, only down," then collapsed, and didn't wake up for 3 days. He doesn't talk anymore, not because he won't, because he can't. The doctors found no damage, but something inside him won't speak. One final team, a documentary crew, tried to film overnight. They brought battery backups, night vision, everything state-of-the-art, and still, every device died at once. Batteries drained to zero at 3:08 a.m. exactly. The same time the jukebox turned on by itself in the dark. No power, no lights, just the same lullaby playing on a loop. The sound tech tried to record it, but when he played it back, it was just crying. They packed up in the dark. One guy broke his ankle falling down the basement steps. Another cut his hand trying to climb out the front window. They didn't even wait for sunrise. Just peeled out of the parking lot and left everything behind. And since then, nobody stays the night, not anymore. Not unless they want something to follow them home. Because at Bobby Mackey's, it's not just haunted. It wants you to come see. It wants you to doubt it. And then it never lets go. The girl couldn't breathe. That's how the story always starts. Her name was Tasha, 21, new in town, just looking for a fun night out with friends. No idea what Bobby Mackey's really was. They said she was laughing when she walked into the women's bathroom. By the time she came out, she was clawing at her throat. It started with a gasp, one of those tight, sudden ones where the air doesn't come all the way in. She looked around, confused, reached for the stall door to steady herself. Then the lights flickered. And that's when her friends outside heard the scream, not loud, short, sharp, like a rabbit getting snatched up by something bigger. They burst through the door and found her on the floor, mouth wide, eyes bulging, fingers scratching at her neck like there were invisible hands wrapped tight around it. There weren't, not that anyone could see, but the marks came anyway. Long red lines front and back like two unseen palms pressing hard. She wheezed out 2 words before she passed out. She's angry. They rushed her to the hospital. Doctors couldn't explain it. No allergies, no trauma, no reason. Just bruises, like she'd been choked by someone who wasn't there. And the strange part, she'd only been in the stall for 30 seconds. The one in the far back corner. The one everyone eventually avoids. That stall has a history. Women say it never opens easily. Even when it's empty, the lock jams. The door shakes. Sometimes it sobs. Yes, sobs. One woman came out crying herself. Said she heard her own voice whispering from behind the door before she even touched it. Another swore she saw feet under the stall next to hers. Bare feet, pale, facing the wrong way. When she bent down to check, there was nothing there. But the stall was cold. So cold her breath fogged in the air. A male janitor once tried to fix the hinges in that stall. Took one step inside and collapsed. He was out for 10 minutes. Said it felt like someone pushed his head underwater. He never went back in. Transferred to another location 2 weeks later. The bathroom mirror doesn't help. It fogs when no one showered, and sometimes words appear. Wiped clean in the middle, like someone traced letters with a fingertip. Once it said, "Tell him I still sing." Another time, not done. A teenager took a selfie in the mirror once. Nothing weird until they looked at the photo later. Something stood directly behind her. No eyes. Just a wide, grinning mouth. They deleted it immediately, didn't matter. The image reappeared in their cloud storage. 3 times. Eventually they had to change phones. Still had nightmares. Still woke up to music playing faintly from under their bed. And always the same note sequence. Lullaby, lullaby, scream. One bartender, Maria, tried blessing the bathroom. Just a little holy water, no big ritual. She poured it under the stall door. The water hissed, evaporated on contact. She burned her hand trying to wipe it up. Still has the scar. She says the stall doesn't like her anymore. Door locks on its own whenever she walks by. And when it finally opens, the air inside smells like something died and cried at the same time. Some think it's Johanna, others say it's something deeper. Older, maybe something that latched onto that corner stall as a place to hide. A crack in the room where it could push through just enough. There's a rule now, unspoken. Don't go into that stall alone after midnight. Don't look in the mirror too long. And if you hear humming, run. But someone swore they saw her reflection in the mirror a week later. Standing in the stall, mouth open, still gasping, still begging. And something was standing behind her, smiling. The mirror was old, mounted just outside the green room, cracked at the corners. It had seen everything, every act, every band, every breakdown, every blackout. But it had also started showing things that weren't supposed to be there. They called him the glowing man. Not because he lit up like neon. No, his glow was wrong, sickly, pale like moonlight through wet glass. He didn't move, didn't blink. He just appeared right behind you. One girl saw him while fixing her makeup. She was halfway through putting on mascara when she caught the shape behind her. Not close, just far enough back to be terrifying. She thought it was another performer at first. Tall, lanky, but then she noticed his face. It had no shadows. Even in the low light, it was fully lit, like he carried his own eerie spotlight. And his mouth was open just slightly. Not wide, not smiling. Just enough to show a row of perfectly still teeth. She turned around, no one. When she looked back, he was closer in the mirror. She ran, didn't bother with her makeup bag. Just left. The mirror stayed quiet after that, for a while, until others started seeing him too. Always the same look. Glowing pale, empty eyes that looked like they'd watched too much and liked it. Some said he wasn't behind them, but inside the mirror, just under the surface, pressing his face up like he wanted out. A paranormal researcher came in once with a thermal camera. They turned it toward the mirror. Everything looked normal, until a heat signature pulsed from inside the glass. Not a reflection, a shape, standing right behind the operator. The outline was ice cold. The camera glitched, rebooted itself twice before dying completely. Another guest, drunk but alert, was washing his hands and looked up. There he was again, the glowing man. Closer this time, his head tilted, as if studying him. And this time the man's mouth did move just barely, like he was trying to form a word but couldn't remember how. The drunk guy punched the mirror, split open his knuckles. It didn't break, didn't even crack. But his blood smeared across the glass, and it didn't drip. It spread, slowly, following the contour of a handprint no one could see. He passed out right there on the floor. When he woke up, he couldn't stop shaking. Right before it flipped itself onto the floor, no one touched it. The mirror near the entrance eventually got covered up. Just a cloth over it, taped at the edges. People said it felt wrong to look at. Even in daylight, it vibrated, some claimed, like it had a heartbeat. One woman, sensitive to these things, put her hand near the cloth and felt warmth, then cold. Then her vision went black for 5 full seconds. She was blind, no medical reason. It came back slowly, but she said the first thing she saw was the outline of him in the mirror. Smiling, someone finally tried to remove it. Hammer, gloves, full intention to replace it with a flat panel. But the screws holding the mirror in place had rusted solid, wouldn't budge. One cracked the wall before giving. The guy who tried said it felt like pulling teeth from bone. When they did get it loose, they found something written behind it, faint, etched into the drywall like it had been scratched by fingernails. He watches from behind. That was enough. They left it where it was, bolted it tighter, added more tape. Now nobody touches it. It still reflects though, even through the cloth. Sometimes people swear they see a soft outline glow through the fabric, especially late at night, especially when no one else is around. And if you're unlucky enough to catch it uncovered, if the cloth slips even just a little, whatever you do, don't look too long. Because the glowing man watches from behind, and sometimes, just sometimes, he sees you back. They first thought it was someone in boots. That's what footsteps sound like upstairs when the bar is empty, thick, heavy, echoing like someone pacing in old leather soles. Except no one was up there. And the sound didn't match human rhythm. It was wrong, too slow, then too fast, then backward. The thing with hooves doesn't knock like a person. It stomps, scrapes. Sometimes it taps, like it's thinking or waiting. Carl heard it first, of course he did. He stopped sweeping because he thought someone had broken in. The sound was so clear, so close, just above his head near the attic. Heavy, sharp, not like shoes, not like paws, but hooves. He climbed the stairs. Slowly, wrench in hand, opened the attic door, with every nerve screaming at him not to. And what did he find? Nothing. At first, then his flashlight flickered. And in that brief second between light and dark, he saw them. Marks, deep grooves in the wood. Not scratches, not claw marks. Gouges, 4-pronged, like something had been pacing back and forth, dragging itself along. He didn't go back up ever. The sound returned the next night, then the next. Always between 2 kais and 3 shoes a.m., like clockwork. A cook once stayed late prepping for an event. Heard the same footsteps above the kitchen. Got spooked, called the cops. They searched every room, found no one. But the ceiling above the kitchen had splintered. And there, in the dust, hoofprints clear. Too small to be a horse. Too deep to be a prank. And pressed with such force, the floorboards bowed slightly. They asked the cook to come back. He didn't, said, "I know what I heard." That was not a person. Another night, a DJ packing up felt something brush past his legs. Thought it was a dog. Looked down, nothing. But when he turned, he caught a glimpse of something in the stage mirror. Just a glimpse, black shape. Crooked spine, bent legs, and where feet should have been, split hooves. It vanished before he could scream. He still has nightmares. Said it didn't just look at him. It saw him all the way through. Another report came from a tourist on a ghost tour. Group was standing near the dance floor when the air turned bitter cold. The tour guide was mid-sentence when the woman fainted. When she came to, she said she felt something kick her in the chest. Her blouse had a bruise the shape of a cloven hoof. Clean, clear purple and black. The guide ended the tour early, said it wasn't safe anymore. They tried to bless the place again, a group of pastors. One of them sprinkled holy water near the attic steps. He was thrown back, not pushed. Thrown. Landed 6 feet down the hall, shoulder dislocated. Witnesses say it was like something swatted him away. After that, the footsteps grew louder, like it was angry, like it wanted them to hear. Every floorboard groaning, every stomp shaking the air. And then it started appearing in dreams. Not just Carl's, not just those who worked there, but visitors, people who had only stopped by for a drink, a song, a laugh. They'd go home and dream of something standing in the doorway of their bedroom, tall, black-hoofed, smiling without lips, breathing through skin that moved like smoke. One man woke up to bloody hoofprints across his carpet. He lives 3 states away. The next night he burned his clothes, never wore anything from that night again. They say if you hear it walking above you, don't speak, don't move, because it listens, and the thing with hooves doesn't like being noticed. It only visits once, but that's all it needs. There's a stall in the far left corner of the women's restroom at Bobby Mackey's. If you've been more than once, you probably know the one. It's almost always closed. Even when unlocked, it seems to shut itself. Sometimes it eases open just a little, as if curious, then slams shut when someone gets close. People call it haunted, but no one laughs for long. Because there's a sound, not shouting, not screaming. It's smaller than that. Softer, like someone crying into their hands and trying not to be heard, muffled, shaky, grief you weren't meant to hear. Some say it's Johanna, the woman from the old legends. Her story is full of sorrow, lost love, a life cut short. But this doesn't feel like her. Johanna is said to sing, "This one only cries." Years ago, a young woman had an episode in that stall. When they found her, she was pale and gasping, as if she'd stepped into a place where the air didn't want to be breathed. She never went back inside the building again. After that, people started talking more openly. The stall felt colder, they said, the air heavier. The smell faintly metallic, like old coins or damp earth. Some guests dared each other to stay inside with the door closed. Most didn't last 30 seconds. One man claimed he saw a message slowly form on the door, drawn by something unseen, like a finger moving through fog. "I can't leave." Another guest said the toilet flushed 3 times without being touched. Each time, the water spun the wrong direction. Each time, the door opened a little wider, like it was waiting. A teenager on a tour once knocked on the door and called out, joking. Then something knocked back 3 steady taps. Not echoes, not plumbing. She ran, left behind her things, refused to finish the tour. And no one's been able to keep that stall open for long. They've propped it, taped it, even tried removing the door altogether. Bobby Mackey doesn't touch it now. He waves off the stories, but he never enters the restroom alone. There's a mirror in there too, old and spotted, tilted just enough to make you uneasy. Sometimes when no one's inside, you can hear the faucet run. And under it, beneath the sound of water, a faint weeping. You open the door, expecting someone inside, but it's just that stall, open by an inch, just enough to stop your breath. And once in a while, if the light bends right across the glass, you see something in the mirror. Only for a second, a shadow, a suggestion of someone behind you. Not hostile, just present. One woman collapsed after seeing it. They already knew it wasn't Johanna or Pearl, someone else. People leave offerings by that stall now. Flowers, folded slips of paper, quiet apologies. Not because they fear what's inside, but because they feel her, still waiting, still grieving, not for vengeance, just for someone to care. And maybe one day someone will say it's okay now. You're not forgotten. But until then, she'll keep crying, gently, night after night. It's the smell that hits you first. Before the cold, before the lights flicker, before anything even stirs, there it is. That awful, unmistakable scent, rotting meat and wilted roses, sulfur curling up from the floorboards like a whisper, no one invited. Every ghost has its own calling card. Johanna, she smells like her perfume. Something sweet, floral, soft, until it curdles at the edge with mildew. Pearl, some say she leaves behind a coppery scent. Blood and rainwater, but others, older ones, smell like hell's compost bin. The sulphurous ones, the ones that never lived here to begin with. That's when you know you're not dealing with a broken heart. You're dealing with something that never had one in the first place. One night, A security guard reported a stench that made him gag as soon as he opened the main door. He said it was like roadkill left in the sun for days, sour, sweet, and wrong. He searched the whole building, found nothing, until he got to the stairs above the basement. The smell got stronger, and then he passed out. Woke up an hour later at the foot of the stairs. His shoes were missing, one sock soaked in something black and sticky. They never figured out what it was. It didn't stain the floor, didn't dry, just vanished, like the memory of a nightmare you weren't supposed to survive. Another visitor swears she smelled roses before something touched her shoulder. She turned around, expecting her friend, but the room was empty. And the rose smell soured instantly, like perfume sprayed over rot. She vomited into her purse, didn't speak the rest of the night. Bartenders say the scent sometimes leaks out from under the trapdoor. Not every night, only when the music stops too suddenly, or when someone says her name too loud. It starts as a whiff, faint, like burned matches, then it thickens, like someone lit a match inside a crypt. You can taste it, it sticks to your tongue, makes your stomach flip sideways. Once a guest tried to play it cool. Mocked it, said, "What, a ghost farted?" Real classy. The smell hit him like a punch. He doubled over, eyes watering. Couldn't breathe. Someone had to carry him out. Said his skin felt like it was crawling from the inside. His cat refused to enter his bedroom. His mirrors fogged up with no reason. He moved a month later. Didn't leave a forwarding address. The roses are worse somehow, because they always come just before something happens. One waitress said she smelled them right before the jukebox flipped on by itself. She thought it was sweet at first. Then the lights above the bar exploded. Not shattered, exploded, like something inside wanted out. She quit, refused to even return to collect her last check. They mailed it to her. It came back, marked, refused, returned to sender. Another time, a band was loading out through the back entrance. The lead singer caught the scent of flowers, thought maybe it was someone's perfume. Turned the corner, and the hallway was empty, except for one single rose petal, lying in a puddle of something thick, sticky, and red. He didn't touch it, just stared. Later that night, he dreamt of dancing alone in the bar, but the walls were weeping roses, and something hoofed was waiting at the edge of the dance floor. Grinning, he left the band, stopped playing music altogether, never said why, but he mailed his guitar to a stranger in another state, with the note, "Don't ever play this near water." The smells are warnings, they say, omens. Whatever lingers in Bobby Mackey's doesn't always show up in a scream or a shadow. Sometimes it creeps in quietly, on the back of a breath, in the corners of a room that suddenly feel 1 foot too small. So if you ever smell roses that don't belong, or catch a whiff of something burnt when no candles are lit, leave quickly, because what comes next is never subtle. They called a priest, finally. It wasn't the first time, but it was the first time they begged. This time it wasn't about ghosts. It was about survival. The priest's name doesn't matter. He didn't stay long enough to be remembered for anything other than how quickly he ran. But he came with confidence, holy water, a crucifix the size of a shovel, and a voice steady enough to quiet a room. At first, they brought him in during the day. No one wanted him there after dark. He walked the perimeter of the bar, whispered prayers, salted corners, looked at his own reflection for a long time, then turned it to face the wall, said nothing, moved on. He spent most of his time in the basement. Down there, the air thickened like soup. He stood over the trapdoor, didn't open it, just stared. He said it felt like the ground was breathing. When he started the blessing, everything went wrong at once. The lights above the bar flickered and died. The stereo, unplugged, blared static. And somewhere upstairs, a door slammed so hard the foundation trembled. He read faster, sprinkled holy water across the stone, and the well hissed. Hissed, not steam, not pipes, a voice. Sharp serpentine. Like it hated him, he kept going. But then the walls bled, not gushing, just weeping. Tiny crimson trails running down the stone like sweat. The priest paused, only for a second, but that was enough. A wind roared up from the well, no explanation, no machinery, just cold, knocking over his Bible, blowing out the candles. The crucifix in his hand heated like metal in a furnace. He dropped it, screamed. The skin on his palm bubbled in the shape of the cross. He backed away, stumbled up the stairs, didn't even close the trapdoor. He muttered something in Latin on the way out. And then he ran, didn't stop for his coat, didn't take his keys, just ran. He called 2 days later, said he'd never return, said whatever was inside that room wasn't something he could handle, and that he hadn't slept since. He kept seeing things at the foot of his bed. A woman in red, a glowing man with no eyes, something with hooves that left ash on his bedsheets. He mailed Bobby a warning, just a single page, no greeting. No signature, only this: seal the well, bury the music, leave the dead alone. They tried, they really did. I had contractors to fill the room with cement. They poured 2 feet of it over the trapdoor, waited 3 days for it to dry. It cracked, not little cracks, deep fractures like something inside was pushing back. So they tried again, more cement, stronger mix, reinforced with steel mesh. It cracked again. That time it didn't just split. It caved in, caved down, like the floor had given up and decided to feed whatever was below. After that, they welded a steel plate over it. No more prayers, no more blessings. Just metal, cold, heavy, unholy. The bleeding walls eventually stopped, but the smell didn't. And the music still plays, especially after closing. Especially when no one's there to hear it. The priest never answered any more calls. Moved out of state, changed his number. Disappeared like so many others. And still, that one sentence echoes behind everything. Seal the well. Bury the music, leave the dead alone. But no one can seal it for good. Not really, because you can't bury something that never died. You can only cover it and pray it doesn't rise. It was a Saturday night. The place was packed, neon buzzing, drinks sloshing, boots sliding across the sticky wood under strings of tired party lights. The band was deep into a fast-paced country set. People clapping, stomping, singing along. Then a scream sliced through it all. It wasn't playful. It wasn't part of the show. It stopped everything cold. All eyes turned to the center of the dance floor. There a young woman stood rigid, arms at her sides, back arched unnaturally, feet not quite touching the floor. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then she dropped, like the air itself had let go of her. She hit the floor hard. Her friend rushed to her side, calling her name. The girl's eyes were wide, her voice barely above a whisper. "It pulled me," she said. "Again and again, I didn't jump. It pulled me." Security stepped in. The music stopped. Most assumed it was a fall or maybe a dizzy spell, until they reviewed the security footage and saw her rise. No helping hands, no stumble, no lift. Just lifted clean off the floor. 5 seconds of impossible stillness. Then she fell. She wasn't the first, not by a long shot. Months earlier, another dancer collapsed mid-twirl. Said she felt something twist her the wrong direction, like a force had taken control of her movement. She landed badly, dislocated her shoulder. People around her said no one touched her, but her shirt had strange markings on it afterward. Imprints that didn't match any hands in the room. Too large, too sharp. Another night, a man staggered off the dance floor, pale and rattled. He told staff he'd been dancing with a woman in red, but when he turned to thank her, his actual date was standing across the room. He paused, then said her feet weren't on the ground. He left the building immediately. Later in the parking lot, he collapsed. No underlying condition, no explanation. Paramedics revived him. He wouldn't say what he saw before blacking out. But he wouldn't face the building, not even as they loaded him into the ambulance. Some say there's something beneath the dance floor, that the well, the one sealed under a grate and a promise, is directly below. And maybe whatever lingers down there remembers motion, wants to feel it again, wants to dance. But it doesn't understand rhythm, so it pushes, pulls, moves people in jarring, unnatural ways until something gives out. One musician, part of a country rock group, noticed the stage lights flickering during a set, not in time with the beat, with something else, slower, uneven, heavy. He said he lost time mid-song, finished the tune but didn't remember playing the last verse. Said it felt like his hands were moving on their own. The drummer backed him up, claimed the snare drum hit twice when no one touched it. They never played that song again. Said the air felt thick, like an audience was clapping for them, but the faces weren't there. After that, some guests began reporting strange dreams. People who'd only visited once started dreaming of spinning rooms, distant music, and invisible hands reaching up from the floor. One woman said she dreamed she was dancing, woke up standing barefoot in her backyard, dirt on her feet, fingernails packed with soil, music still drifting from the open window of her second-story room. She lives alone, and her stereo was off. Now regulars glance at the ceiling before stepping out to dance. Not for luck, for warning, because sometimes the lights flicker and the music changes. And if you stand still long enough, you feel it. That soft hum under the floorboards. Like something old is stirring. Like the room itself is ready to lead, just waiting for you to take the next step. Bobby Mackey doesn't believe in ghosts. At least that's what he says. He's laughed it off in interviews, dismissed it on the radio. Even after the strange events, Carl's breakdown, the girl who rose off the dance floor, the mirror that never reflected quite right, he sticks to the same line. It's just stories, but there's something in how he says it. Quick, nervous, like someone trying to convince himself more than the room. Maybe he has to. Because once you admit your honky-tonk might be sitting on something ancient, something dark, it gets a lot harder to sing about cold beer and heartbreak with a smile. But Bobby's not the only one with a stake in that place. His wife, Janet, believed something was wrong, and her story. That's the part he doesn't bring up. When they first opened the bar, Janet was there helping run the show. She didn't like the basement, but sometimes duty called. One afternoon, she headed down alone to grab supplies. The bar was quiet, no music, no chatter. Just the sound of her own steps and the creak of the stairs. She was halfway down when she felt it. A touch, cold, pressed lightly against her back. Not shoving, just there, she froze. The stairwell dimmed, the air shifted. Then came the whisper. Right beside her ear, low, sharp, clear. Get out! And then the pressure changed. The hand shoved hard. She stumbled forward but caught herself, grabbed the railing just in time and bolted back up the steps, slamming the door behind her. Finally, she said, "There's something down there." He told her it was stress, that she'd imagined it, that she needed rest. But she never went into that basement again. And the red imprint across her back, 5 fingers, larger than any hand in the building, took hours to fade. Later, Janet confided in a friend. She said she started dreaming about the well. Said she could feel it beneath the floor. Said it whispered when the house was quiet. They nearly walked away from the place after that. Almost sold it, but Bobby stayed. He played, he sang. He told himself music made things better. Because in Bobby's world, songs bring order. Notes make sense. Ghosts don't fit the rhythm. Still, when he's alone late at night, he's admitted a few things. That sometimes the jukebox turns on when it's unplugged. That the dressing room door opens on its own. That once, his microphone picked up a voice even though the system was off. He shrugs it off in public, but in private, he says things like, "You don't talk about it. You ignore it and it won't bother you." That's the thing about Bobby. It's not that he doesn't believe. It's that he's afraid to. Because if he does, then every night he's stepped onto that stage, he's done so over something buried, something watching, something listening. If he believes, then every note that echoes off those walls might be answered by something deeper, older but restless. So he plays louder, plays brighter. Like music can keep the silence from crawling up the stairs. Like the twang of a steel guitar might keep the shadows from closing in. But the stories don't stop. The whispers keep coming. The air still shifts when the house goes quiet. And that old trapdoor in the basement still creaks open now and then. Still hums, still breathes. So maybe Bobby doesn't say he believes. Maybe he knows better than to speak it out loud. Because the moment you acknowledge it, you have to listen. And at Bobby Mackey's music world, listening is how it finds its way in. They thought they could finally seal it. For good this time, concrete had cracked. Steel had warped. Even prayers had faded like ink in the rain. So they tried something else. Not official, not from any church. Something older. One of the bartenders brought in her grandmother, a woman raised deep in the mountains. The kind who knew old ways. How to quiet a place. How to ask spirits to move on. She didn't ask questions, she just came. Small frame, silver braids, skin lined like tree bark, eyes sharp and steady. She walked straight to the trap door. In her hands, a jar of graveyard soil, a silver coin, and a small lock of hair tied with red thread. She stood silently over the door for a long time. Then she began to whisper words no one understood, a language that didn't belong to this place or time. She knelt, poured the dirt around the edges. Then she said, clear as day, "You don't belong here anymore." Bulbs, exit signs, even emergency strips, gone in an instant. The temperature dropped like winter had walked in. Then came the sound from beneath the well, high and strange, a piercing metal warping shriek that rattled the walls and cracked a mirror upstairs. Still, the old woman didn't flinch. She pressed her hand to the door and whispered once more. Then silence. For the first time in ages, the air felt still, empty, like something had finally moved on. People noticed the difference. The jukebox stopped starting on its own. No more strange noises in the bathrooms. No more cold gusts or invisible footsteps. It lasted 11 days. On the 12th, the coin disappeared. The lock of hair, too. Gone. No sign of how. Just missing. Then the air changed again. Heavy. Denser glass exploded behind the bar. No one near it. And the music started again. At first, a low hum, then louder. They called the grandmother back. She didn't return. But she sent a message. It was never gone, just resting. That's when they tried to weld the door shut. Again, this time, heavy steel and reinforcement. Within hours, the welds peeled away. Not like they broke. Like something unfastened them from the inside. Carl, who'd gone quiet for months, stood by the door and said, It doesn't want to be locked. It wants to be heard." They didn't listen. But that night, the trapdoor moved. No bang, no rattle, just a soft click. The metal plate shifted slightly out of place. And from the gap, a whisper, "Mine." The bar closed for 3 days. They tried to bring in professionals, not ghost hunters, just construction crews, to fill the basement. Pour gravel, don't seal it over. No one took the job. One man came to give an estimate. He walked in, looked at the floor, turned around, and left without saying a word. He didn't send a bill, and 2 weeks later, he'd moved out of state. No one's heard from him since. Now the trapdoor stays where it is, partially covered, edges scorched from old welds that never held. Like something still lives just beneath, waiting. No one steps over it. Not staff, not guests, not Bobby, especially not Bobby. Because some things don't want to be buried. Some things were never meant to be silenced. And whatever's beneath that floor, it's not gone, it's listening. The truth is, this was never about sealing it away. It was never a fight, it was an invitation. And they accepted it years ago. Every stomp on the dance floor, every cheer, every chorus, every clink of glass. It hears them. The well listens and it never forgets. Carl's exorcism wasn't the end. Not for him. Not for the thing inside him. He sat in that folding chair, arms strapped down, eyes wide and flickering, like someone else was behind them. Just watching, waiting. The room was lit with candles, too many. They cast more shadows than light. The priest, different from the one who ran, was younger. Fierce, like he believed he could actually help. He read from the book, paced in circles, sprinkled holy water on Carl's forehead. At first, Carl just twitched, muttered, whispered something that sounded like Latin but bent backward. Then he screamed, a sound that didn't belong in a human throat. It came out raw, like a mountain splitting open. The windows cracked. The priest flinched but kept going. Carl started convulsing, eyes rolled back. Foam on his lips, but his mouth kept moving. Whispers turned to guttural grunts. Then words, "The well is open." She sings to me. "Oh, the child is still there." And the priest shouted louder, "Try to drown it out." Carl's body bucked so hard the chair snapped. He collapsed to the floor, fingers clawing at the wood, left deep gouges, like he was trying to dig through to something. Then blood from his nose, his mouth, his eyes. The priest backed away just a step. That was all it took. Carl sat up suddenly, too fast, too clean, smiled. Not his smile, his lips stretched, but his eyes stayed blank. And in a voice not his own, he said, "You can't cast out what was invited in." Then collapsed again. This time he stayed down, breathing barely. The exorcism was called off. Everyone left the room shaken, except Carl. He woke up 6 hours later, didn't remember a thing. But he wouldn't go near the basement after that, not even to change a fuse. Said the walls whispered when he got too close. Said he still heard her singing in his sleep. Soft lullabies that ended in screaming. He stopped talking much, but he wrote. Pages and pages. Drawings, symbols, words, and spirals. He showed one to a paranormal expert. They turned pale, said it was an ancient invocation. A call to open the gate and let her through. No one knew who her was, but they all had guesses. Carl once said she wasn't a ghost. Said she was something else, a memory that learned how to move. He wrote that she had many faces. Sometimes Johanna, sometimes Pearl. Sometimes someone new, and always she sang. Even when her mouth didn't move, the voices got worse. He wore headphones to drown them out. He lived alone, slept during the day, walked at night. People saw him pacing the parking lot, mumbling, covered the scars on his hands, burns from the exorcism that never healed. One bartender swore she saw his reflection move differently in the mirror. Said Carl turned left, but the reflection turned right. He left town for a year, said he needed peace, but peace didn't stick. He came back, quiet, older, eyes duller, and he stood at the edge of the dance floor one night, just staring at the ceiling. When asked what he was looking at, he said, "The trapdoor in the attic's open again." No one had said a word about it. No one had gone up there. But the next morning, the attic door was indeed open. The nails bent, the bolts snapped, and on the stairs, footprints. Not shoe prints, bare feet. And hooves. Carl didn't react. Just sat in the corner booth, scribbling, humming, sometimes crying without sound. Because the exorcism wasn't the end, it was a beginning. A door kicked open just wide enough to let something see out. And it never stopped watching, never stopped whispering. And Carl, he's still listening even now. It's getting worse now. Everyone says it, the regulars, the staff, even the skeptics who used to joke about haunted toilets and ghost cowboys. They don't laugh anymore, not after the lights started going out for no reason. Not after the floor began to hum, even when the speakers were silent. Not after people began bleeding. Meaner, and they don't wait for night anymore. One afternoon, full sunlight beaming through the windows, a woman at the bar suddenly screamed. Blood dripped from her ears. No reason, no injury. Doctors said it looked like burst vessels, but there was no trauma. She said she heard a song, just a few notes, too high to be human. Then everything went red. Another night, the bathrooms flooded, not with water, with Mattismada's thick black mud bubbling up from every drain. It smelled like death and metal. They cleaned it up, called plumbers. Nothing was wrong with the pipes, like it had never happened. But the floors were stained. Dark streaks under the tiles, won't scrub out. A new bartender, fresh-faced and fearless, lasted 3 weeks. She said the smell of sulfur clung to her clothes, no matter how many times she washed them. She quit after seeing something crawl across the ceiling while locking up. No one else saw it, but she swore it whispered her name. Another man, a delivery driver, refused to step past the front door, said he saw a face looking back at him through the glass, with a grin that didn't stop. And then there's the sounds. A thrum, like heartbeats echoing through floorboards, always in threes. Boom, boom, boom. Then silence. Then something slams against the walls. Or the mirror, or your thoughts. People forget things inside, stand still for too long, and your mind starts slipping. A girl walked into the green room, came out 20 minutes later, asking what year it was. She wasn't kidding, had no idea how long she'd been inside. Had scratches on her arms shaped like letters. They spelled stay, but they didn't look carved. They looked grown, raised on her skin like scars that had always been there. Every light popped, darkness swallowed the room, and someone screamed, not on stage, above, from the ceiling. The sound of wood splintering followed, but the spot on the ceiling, directly over the dance floor, began to drip, thick, sticky. Red no leak found. After that, they stopped booking bands for a while. Too many refused, too many had dreams they couldn't shake, of being buried alive, of hands pulling them through the stage floor, of singing voices that filled their mouths like smoke. Even Bobby started to shift. He doesn't stay past sunset, doesn't walk the halls alone anymore. His laughter's a little too sharp, a little too tired. When asked, he still says, "There ain't no ghosts," but he never says it facing the stage. And his hands shake when he fumbles for keys. More than that, something inside it is stirring. Something that's fed on decades of sorrow, screams and steel guitar. And it's hungry. The air's heavier now. The walls crack a little deeper every month. And the well hums louder. Boom, boom. Every third beat something shifts. A cold breath, a flicker, a whisper in your ear that doesn't use your name but somehow knows it. And the scariest part, it's not attacking for attention anymore. It doesn't want to be seen. It wants to stay. One memory, one drop of blood. One scream, that's all it needs. Even if your body walks out the door, part of you stays right under the floorboards where it waits. And waits and hums. You can still hear her singing. Long after the bar shuts down, after the chairs are flipped, the last beer poured, and the lock clicks into place. But whatever it is, it's real. And then the song began again. Calling to him, he stepped back. Just outside his dreams, one you don't recognize, but still miss. Other times it's more like a funeral dirge. One man heard her whisper his name in the middle of a song. He hadn't told anyone his full name. And then there are the dreams, the ones people share. But they all describe the same thing. The cracked mirror and Johanna back-turned, singing softly. She doesn't look up, not until you say her name. Not angry, not sad. Maybe she's trying to warn us. But no one stays long enough to hear the end. And so she keeps singing, to walls soaked with stories, and to the ones who never left. You can still hear her, and the air turns too sweet too fast. She's there, just behind the curtain, just beyond the glass, just under the floor, still singing. For the dead, and for the ones listening now, let your thoughts soften at the edges. What you've just heard isn't just a haunting, it's a warning stitched into song, a lullaby caught between life and death, spinning softly under dim lights and red neon. It's just a building, they say, just concrete and wood and steel, but places remember. And some places don't just remember, they sing it back. So if you ever find yourself in Wilder, Kentucky, and you see the glow of Bobby Mackey's from the highway, maybe you'll stop in. Maybe you'll step onto the dance floor. Just for one song, but don't stay too long. And don't follow the music if it starts playing after closing, because what sings to you from the shadows isn't always lonely. Sometimes it's hungry. Let your breathing slow now. Let the imagery blur into the dark. The crying in the stall, the glowing man, the thing with hooves. Let them fade. They only have power if you bring them with you. And you don't have to. Not tonight. You made it to the end. You're safe now, so close your eyes. And if you hear humming, just tell yourself it's nothing. Just the wind, or maybe, just maybe. She finally finished her song. Sweet dreams.